Starting. Hey, Sim Captain Mike, how you doing? We're just getting ready here. I'm setting up the stream for today. Let me know if that music's a little too loud. Stream should start in about 5 minutes. Okay, great. This guy is awesome, by the way. Frank Cabali, he's awesome. Look at that sweep. It's awesome. Anyways. You can't hear it because of the music. I tried turning the gain down on the mic a little bit too, so... Hey, how you doing? Is that Joe? We'll be starting in about a minute here. Let me turn the music down. It's like gathering music. Sorry, Frank and Bali is just awesome. All right. More on that when we And anyway, so I checked, the live stream is up and it looks like everyone can hear me, so that's good. Let me just, so I've got good audio going on here. Okay, so are you reading my mic? Am I coming through on the mic? Because I know I got the gain way down, so let me know if I need to turn it up a little bit. So let me try turning it up. Oops, wrong one. Okay, is that a little better? Can you hear me now? Because the OBS says that I am broadcasting pretty well, so should be good. I'm going to leave this off to the side so I can monitor switches in and out of. Oh, okay, good, loud and clear. Thank you. And welcome everybody to the second VR conversion live stream hosted by Father Son Flight Simulator and SimVRlabs. We are going to be continuing with the SR71 conversion, continuing from last time. Yeah, there's usually about a 30-second delay from when I talk to when you guys can actually hear it and when it's actually going on the screen. So that's just programmed into the decoder. So what I thought we would do today is start off by reviewing where we were last time. And if you recall where we were last time, let's see if I can get the Notepad++ up. We had done the first two conversions of the drag axis to axis knobs. And I said that before the next time I would complete doing that for the remaining 7, which I have done before this stream. And I want to highlight a couple of things that I discovered during that time. The first was that, let me make sure I get the chat up here. The first was that, hello Leonard, welcome to the stream. The first is that in the last stream I set the number of the stepping to 0.25, and what that did was left basically 4 positions of this knob when it actually, I believe it's supposed to be more continuous. And I think in my mind I wanted to do 0.025, not 0.25. And so I retuned that to 0.05, and you'll see the difference. And it may actually still not be enough. I may need to go down to 0.025 on that to make it a little smoother. But that floodlight now, it does reflect the change that I've made here. The wrapping that we put onto the heading selector was also applied to the OBS, and I think that was the only other one where I needed to put a wrap manip into the string. Okay, and then we went ahead and did the console lights, instrument lights, and I went for 0.01 on the stepping, so that's basically 100 steps. And each step is 5 degrees, so that may be not sensitive enough, but we could try it. We could always turn it down to 1 degree, so it's like 1 degree per 1 step, if you will. And then the autopilot altitude, I put that in steps of 1,000 because I didn't think, with a 60,000 ceiling on that autopilot, I didn't think we would want to go, but we can go 500 if we want, if we think that's too much. But that essentially gives us 60 gradations and 3 degrees. That's a full 180 degree on the wrist, which is comfortable, I think. The vertical speed is -6,000 to 6,000 with I put a gradation of 100, so that's what is that, 120 gradations. All right, so that might be a little bit, I don't know, maybe not, or maybe not sensitive enough. We'll see. But then the barometric setting on the altimeter. Okay, so if what I did was I sort of took the range and then I took the steps, and I'm aiming for a lot of steps in between, and then I'm sort of dividing that into 180, so that's the full like rotation of my wrist from, you know, top to bottom. You know, if I flip over my hands, about 180-degree turn, and I sort of estimate the degrees per action based on that. Okay, so that's where we are on the drag axis manipulators. And Joe's confirming that 0.01 is a good number for smooth knobs. Yeah, that's about right. About 100 degradations is, I think, is where you start to go from a jagged to a smooth. And I'm going to demonstrate that in the VR. So I'm going to go ahead and switch to VR, and we'll go into the cockpit, and I've already loaded it up with this VR config file where it is today, and then we will move on from there. So let me go into VR. Excuse me, I have to put on my VR gear. So let's, okay, hopefully you can see. And I'm going to change it to the Rift audio speakers so I can hear. I have to disable this one to get it into, there it is. Okay, so let me straighten out in here. Okay, so as I was saying before, that one we were looking at last time, it only had 4 degradations. Now it has many more, and it's a lot more smooth because I have about, I think it's about 20 degradations on there now, and it's easier to manipulate. So pretty easy to turn it now. The others are pretty smooth. Remember, I had 100 degradations on there, or I was shooting for that, so those are pretty smooth. This one also is pretty smooth. So now they're behaving more like what you would expect them to behave if you were to have that actual manipulator in the plane. The comm knob also, I'm not sure if that's sensitive enough, but it's not terrible. There's your coarse and fine. You have the nav over here. And I'm sorry, I'm not going all the way down the bottom because I have an actual obstruction here with my armrest. Okay. Then you have the barometric pressure. This rotates. You have the coarse selector. Hold on. That's now working. And remember before that was a huge a drag axis along here. Now it's a rotation. And we fixed the heading indicator last time. Okay. So now we get to the more complicated stuff. This is where we're now going to try to make the joystick a manipulator. We have to fix the throttle. Remember, we got to put a center throttle in there so that in VR we can move them both up together with our VR controller. Okay, and then if we have time, we have the we have these over here, which are still drag axis and these weird X and Y or Z direction kind of thing going on here. And we were thinking if we have time, I'll either put those as toggles, which would mean I just click them and it opens, or I can actually turn that into a drag rotate, which is a little more difficult. Okay, I hope I can do that right, because once I start getting into the fine tuning here on these drag rotates and the joystick, so that it follows my my VR controller, it starts to get where you have to really study that format and find where the related animations are so that you can copy them in, and it gets a little more tricky when you do that. But let's go ahead and get out of VR. Okay. Let me set my gear down. And by the way, if you have a question along the way, please feel free to ask, and I'll get to it as soon as I see it. And if you happen to be in the Discord server, just you can go into the voice channel. I would just ask that you keep yourself muted or push to talk unless you have a question here. I see Downwind Sim is already in the stream. Hello, Downwind. How you doing? So, okay. So to import into AC3D, I have some cleanup I have to do first. So I'm going to open the cockpit OBJ, and the AC3D with the X-Plane plugin cannot handle importing a certain command, and that's an attr manip none. So before I actually go and do something, and remember I've saved a copy of the SR71 as the original. I'm going to be working on this one because you always save your reference when you're going to be changing your software, so you can, in case you make a mistake, you can go back to it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a edit replace. Let's see, find replace. Oh, sorry, find replace. And I'm going to look for anything that's an attr manip none, and I'm going to replace it with an attr manip command none and none. Okay. The reason why I do this is because AC3D cannot determine what an att manip none is in this series, and if you don't change it to something that it does recognize, which it does recognize this, which is basically a command to do nothing on 2 data refs, then it could potentially break some of the objects and put your command instructions on the wrong object because it doesn't know how to do it, or it sometimes even combines objects. Now in this case I have, I think, only 2. So let's see, I have 1. Yeah, I have 1 and 2. So I'm going to replace all, right? And then that's only 2. So you see only 2 occurrences were found, 2 occurrences were replaced. Then I'm going to save it, and now I'm ready to import into the cockpit, into AC3D. Let's open AC3D. And remember, I did this last time. I'm just going to do the same thing. Import the SR71 cockpit OBJ. That's now been changed. Let me make sure I saved it here. Yeah, I did save it. Okay. It's now been changed to remove what it can't recognize, which means I'm going to have to undo that when we export it. I'm going to change it to object manipulate because I don't want to select everything. Okay. And I think the first thing we can do is put that center throttle in here, which I think is right here. And if I go to the top view, we're talking about these 2 knobs. Remember, we saw that in the virtual cockpit. I'm going to go ahead and put it in hierarchy view, so when I select it I know where it is. Now there should be a couple of animation groups here. There's one, that's the big one, and then the left one is right next to it. So it's these 2 that I'm focusing on right now. If I want to see what those are, what they're pointing to, you can see one of them is throttle 0 and the other one is throttle 1, right? And what they've done is they've given this the travel path of the the Y direction and the Z direction, and it's a ratio. So ratios are always 0 to 1 in the data ref, so it's 0 to 1 in the min and max. They've given it a tooltip of throttle 1 and throttle 2. So what I'm trying to do is I'm going to try to create one that basically copies this and copies the animation, but put it in the center. And then I'm going to resize these so that I can make room for it. Okay, so select none. So remember, this gives sort of the approximate where the 2 levers come together. Let me put this chat on in case I'm getting... Yes, downward sim. What you're seeing here in the cockpit OBJ is anything that has an object that has a manipulation instruction tied to it. So if you remember what I just showed you here, this throttle, if I go into the object properties in the X-Plane plugin, you can see it has this manipulator. And so long as it has that manipulator, it's going to show up as green when I try to grab it with my VR controller. Okay. And these objects in AC3D, well, they're objects in the cockpit OBJ file, which I'm now seeing in the AC3D program. Okay. And what's good about this is I can manipulate those objects, which I can't really do that very easily in this text file, because all of these objects are represented by all of these data points up here, and I have no idea how to move an object or resize an object with all of these vertice points. I don't know how to do that. It probably could be done if you know how to, like, look at the matrix code and figure out what's going on in the matrix, and then it's kind of what it is, what it's like. But I can't do that. So I use a render. You don't have to use AC3D. I think you can also use Blender. I think it will also work. But I'm not savvy on Blender. I was taught how to do this using AC3D. So that's basically what I use. Okay. Well, the actual cockpit OBJ can contain things that don't have manipulators. If it's in the cockpit OBJ, I've imported it. Okay, so to answer your question, the question was, do this contain things that don't have manipulators? Yes, it contains everything. You have everything that's in the cockpit OBJ. Okay, obviously the whole plane model has many other objects tied to it. You have the fuselage, you have the wings, you have the tail, you have the engines, and all that kind of stuff that has to be modeled for X-plane. This is just the cockpit OBJ. The cockpit OBJ contains everything that you, the pilot, can manipulate with your mouse, or in VR with your VR controller. Okay, so moving on to the what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just copy this entire animation group. So I'm going to select the whole thing. I'm going to duplicate. Okay, you see it put the duplication underneath it, right? So I got to be careful here because I want to remember which one is the one I copied, and this is the one I copied, the one in the center. Okay, so I'm going to select none. Now I'm going to select this one, and I'm going to resize it a little bit without moving it. I don't want to move it because in the front view and in the top view, I'm trying to make room for a new box, which I only want to move exactly into the center of both of these two boxes. This is the throttle, right? So I'm going to resize this one a little bit to make room. I'm just going to drag it a little bit this way. Okay. Then I'm going to deselect it. I'm going to choose the next one. And I'm going to resize that a little bit. I'm just estimating here. Doesn't have to be perfect. And now I'm going to select this one, which I'm now going to move. And I got to be careful when I move it because I kind of want it to fit exactly in between those and it's without overlap. So I'm going to have to resize it a little bit more, or resize this a little bit maybe as well. Okay, almost got it. You see I'm very close, right? Select none. Let's take this top one and shrink it a little bit more. And I'll take this left one, shrink it just a tad more. Okay, select none, and in the center, I'm going to just move that over. What I want to see is a nice clear delineation between the three. Okay. So now instead of those two, I have three. Now in the virtual cockpit, or in VR, instead of those two boxes, I'm now going to see three boxes when I hover over them. Okay. So let me see if I have any more comments in here. Okay. So I have three boxes, and the middle box is the one I want to have the manipulator for both. So I'm going to go into X-plane objects and see if I can get a definition on that. There it is. It's down here. Somehow I moved it down here. Now I need to know, I'm going to call this tooltip both, and I need to find the ratio that will handle both. I think it's just all. right? So the data ref that I need to assign to that is going to change from where it had in the copy to sim, cockpit 2, engine, actuators, throttle, ratio, all, right? And notice that I didn't do anything to the rotation. I didn't do anything to the animation because I still want this to move together with the throttle levers, and I don't want to mess with that. So I'm not touching that. I'm just I'm using the same rotation on this animation as was in the other two. Okay? And we'll see how that works. Okay? So now you don't really have to save it. I just have to deselect it and it keeps it. Okay? So if I were to go click on that again, you can see that my changes are still there. Okay? Now with every change, I'm going to go ahead and save. So this is a major change that I've done to the cockpit OBJ. So I'm going to save as. I'm going to leave it in the SR71 folder. Where is it? Let's see. Oh, this is extra aircraft. I have to go to the laminar research. SR71. Where is it? There it is. And I'm just going to call it my first iteration. Okay? Now I want to also, the other major thing I want to do is I want to make the joystick manipulator. And you see that there's nowhere in this cockpit OBJ that currently has the joystick in it, which is a problem because I can't, if it's not in this file, I can't assign a manipulator to it. I can't go to where it actually is into that file, export that into AC3D, and put the manipulator on it. X-Plane only recognizes the manipulators in the cockpit OBJ. That means I have to move it from where it is in the model into the cockpit OBJ. So I'm going to go ahead and find it. I think I know where it is. And I'm going to do another import on top of this import. And I'm going to go into the folder called Objects. And these are all of the other objects that are in the you can have animations. This is why when I move my yoke, for instance, or my controller, you see the joystick moving left and right, up and down in the animation, but you do not see, you cannot grab that because it's only an animation tied to it. So I believe it's in this file, so I'm going to copy that in. Or put that in. So this is what it gave me. Now, this is a lot more information. I don't know if this is right yet because I need to find if that joystick is in there. Okay. So, wow, this is a lot more than I thought would be. So I'm going to have to start hiding things. So what it did is if you look at the original file that I had in here, this is the cockpit OBJ. And then if I scroll down, in this tree, there's another file now called cockpit OBJ, and this has all of the stuff that you see just imported in. All right. Now, which one of these is the joystick? I don't know. Maybe it's not in this file. Might not be in this file. Nope, it's not in this file. Okay, so that's not it. So I'm going to hide the whole thing. I'm going to try again to the next file. Okay, so let's see. Joy and pedals, that's probably it. I should have seen that. Joy and pedals is probably what I needed. Okay, so let's port that. And I think I see it now. So select none. All right, now I'm going to collapse this tree because I don't need that anymore. What I'm looking for is the joystick. Here it is, right here. You see that joystick? And if I have a top view, there it is right there as well. Okay. So let me center it. Let me make sure I'm not getting any questions here while I'm doing this. Okay, good. Sorry, because when I click on different windows, it hides the chat behind it. So I'm sorry if I don't get to your question right away. Anyways, this is the one I want. You see, I just selected that object. It's the entire joystick. and I can go scroll in here and find out which one is highlighted. There it is right there. Notice that it has an animation group associated with it. Why does it have an animation group? Well, when I move the joystick to left and right with my controller, you see the joystick move to the left and right in the cockpit. There's a rotate animation on there. And I want to keep that because when I put this in the cockpit OBJ for the manipulator, I want the green box, if you will, to rotate in the same manner as the joystick when I move it. So I'm going to take this whole group here, this whole animation. I'm going to, again, duplicate it. Okay. And I think it just put it underneath. I think it did anyway. Let me see if that's the joystick. Hold on. I think it's going to be hard to see because of the select none. Let's unhide that. Or hide that, and then, yeah, there it is. So now I'm going to take this whole group and I'm going to drag it all the way up to the top underneath the LOD default tree. So you see it says group default LOD. I'm going to put it right underneath that. Okay, you see that it transferred the whole group in. You see that? Okay, so now I'm done with this file that I just imported, and I don't want anything else in that file, so I'm going to hide the rest of it. So let me make sure I have the right tree here. It's the joy pedals. I want to collapse that, and I want to hide it. So now the only thing is that I brought in now is the joystick, or copy of the joystick. Okay. Yes, I agree. I should have seen that. I should have seen the file called joy pedals, because maybe that's the one that has the joystick and the pedals in it. It's not always obviously named. So just like, you know, I'd grab the first thing I saw and I imported it in, and you know, yeah, I didn't get the hit that I wanted. But you just go through it until you find what you need. And yeah, yoke is also good. Okay, but let's go ahead and work on this, because I don't want to redraw the object twice, right? I don't want to have two overlapping objects, because when you get into VR, that's going to look weird. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. So in this actual object, I'm going to go to object properties. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a disable draw in there. So what that means is that this is an object that's floating around in space, right, that you cannot see, right? Basically, this is a hidden object now. But I want to add a manipulator to it so that I can grab it with my VR controller. Now, when you want to do a joystick or a yoke, if I go back to our configuration file here, the manipulator of choice for that type of thing is called a manip drag underscore xy. It says right here, it sets up a manipulation which has two axes, and in the joystick you can see you have the left and right, which is the x-axis, and then if you're in 2D, I'm going to go up and down. That's why it's in the y-axis, to push it forward or to push it backward. So this is why it's called the drag xy as opposed to a drag xz, because it's based on the 2D. But this is where I want to, this is the manipulator that I want to use in order to make this manipulatable in the cockpit OBJ. It's going to ask me for a cursor. It's going to ask me for a draw distance in the X direction and a draw distance in the Y direction. I'm probably going to default that to 100. It doesn't really matter too much in VR, but I'm just going to, you know, put 100 on each of those. And then it needs the minimum data ref for data ref 1, the maximum data ref for data ref 1, the minimum for data ref 2, the maximum for data ref 2. And in this case, this is going to be the roll and the pitch of of the joystick. So I'm going to put in a drag XY, which here it calls it axis 2 dimension, axis 2D. Okay. And those data ref points that I just mentioned are here. So I'm going to put 100 here. I'm going to put 100 here. And if I recall, I need the minimum x, which is -1 to +1. And in the y direction, I know it's reversed. It's like 1 and -1, I think is the right way to do it. I'm going to go ahead and call this the joystick. And here I need to assign the 2 data refs that it's asking for the x and y direction. So I need to find the, I think it's Sim Cockpit 2, and then once I have that, it's the, let's see, I think it's the controls, I'm not sure. Let's see. Yeah, here it is. And I think the correct order for the x direction is the roll. And in the y direction will be the pitch. So I'm just going to go ahead and, actually what I can do is I can copy this in to find it more easily. And then I can delete the roll, and then it should find the pitch for me a lot easier. There it is. Okay. And close that. So now when I go back into VR, I can now grab this and I can now manipulate the joystick. Let me make sure I don't have any questions on that. Okay, good. Good. So I'm going to go ahead and go back. I'm going to export this. So let's go ahead and save it again. I'm going to save as I'm going to put this as 2. Because one is with just the throttle and one is with the joystick. I'm going to go ahead and do an export. So when you do an export, you go to the X-plane, bulk export. Okay. It's going to ask me where I want to save it. I'm going to save it in the SR71 directory. It's going to replace the one that's there. And it'll close AC3D in the process of the export. So now I'm going to go back into VR, and we'll see what that's done. Okay, back in VR. Now remember I have to reload the aircraft. And when you reload it, it's going to have the engines on and stuff, but I don't really care about that. I'm just going to test. Okay, now let's see what it's done. Can I manipulate this now? Yes, I can manipulate this. Oh, that's weird. Okay, that doesn't seem to be working. Why is this all the way back? I must have another controller on it or something. So when I click it, it's doing this weird thing. So I have a problem here. That's weird. So what I'm doing is when I click on it, it goes all the way back like this, and then I'm using my yoke controller to manipulate the rest of the way. As soon as I click on it, that's really weird. Why is it doing that? Huh. Well, let's see if the throttle worked. So now I see 3 boxes where before I saw 2. I'm going to try to bring those up together, and I can now bring them up together. And I can bring one up. I can bring the other one up. And I can bring them up together. So that's good. That's working exactly like I wanted. But this isn't working for some reason. I have no real idea what's going on there. I've never seen that one happen before. All right, so let's. I think take 6. I think you can use Blender, although I don't know how to use Blender. So just hold on. Let me get out of. Yeah, let's look at that yoke. See what it looks like. I'm gonna reload it in the OBJ file. I wonder if it's because I didn't. Oh, I think I know what I did wrong. Let me try this first before we try anything else. I'm going. Remember how I did the ATTR command none switch? I think I need to switch it back. So I need to replace that, the command none with the command none. Let's replace all. It should be 2. Good. We have 2. Let's save it, and then let's reload and see if that fixes it. And this is live, so you make a mistake, and you're gonna make mistakes if you do this. So sometimes this is an iterative process. Okay, let's go back into VR. Let's reload. And see if that fixes it. Okay. No, it doesn't fix it. That's really weird. I've never seen that before. Why would it do that? Okay, well, at least we got this one working. Okay. And let's go into, let's disable this and enable this. Okay, now I'm back in here. Let's pause that sound. Okay. That is really strange, so let's see if we can figure that out. So let's find out where that tooltip is in the cockpit OBJ, as was suggested by Joe. And let's see if we can find what's going on with that. That's really weird. Should be near the top. Remember, we put it at the top. So it's a drag XY. Oh, I didn't put a cursor. Maybe I got to put a cursor on it. So the cursor. Let me go back to the cursors. I want to put a 4 arrows cursor on that. Let's see if this works. Let's save that. He says I have no pitch animation. Ah, that's weird. Did I copy that wrong then? Yeah, I think you're right, Joe. I think you're right. You can see here there's a roll animation, rotate, but there's no pitch rotate, which means I could have copied it wrong. So let me see if let's see if that's what's happened here. Let's go back into the AC 3D file. Yeah, something must have gotten bonked. You're absolutely right. Something must have gotten bonked when I did that. And this is what happens, So let's see. Let's open up iteration 2 and take a look at that. Select none. Object properties and tool hierarchy. Okay. So let's go back and look at the original. So it was in here. And there's a rotate. Ah, look at that. Look at that. I think what I did was I grabbed it from here, but I didn't grab it from here. I think I should have grabbed it from here. Because there's the yoke. Let's see, that's a break ratio. Let's see, that's weird. Let's see. That's a yoke heading ratio. Why is that a break ratio? That's weird. Let me get back into chat here. Well, I was pretty sure I grabbed that correctly. So let me go back in and see if I can find that. Okay, so we have this one right here. Let me look at it again. Okay, so here it is. You have this rotate and this rotate. There's the roll and there's the pitch. I must have grabbed it from here instead of over here. Right? Okay. So and then when I that must have been when I copied it. So let me make sure I copied it correctly. Let me unselect none. Okay, so I'm just gonna do it again because I think that was a mistake on my part. Why is that hidden and locked? Did I accidentally hit that? Hold on. There's the pitch. And there's a... You know what? I did do it right. I just... Somehow I locked it. I think. Maybe that's what it is. Ah, that was my pedals. Yeah. Okay, so then this must be the correct one. And I think maybe... because that was locked, it wasn't doing it right. Because I do see the two rotates there. I see the pitch rotate and I see the roll rotate. So maybe I can try doing it again. Maybe I accidentally hit the lock there, and maybe that's when I do that, it's hidden and locked, so it can't do anything. I think that's maybe what I did. So you think it's worth trying another export? Yeah, you think so. Okay, so let's try another export. Okay, so this time I'm going to save it with it unlocked. And I'll just save it as that, and we'll go ahead and do the export again. Okay, and it should shut down. Okay, I think I did it right this time. All right, and then yes, now you see it. Let's see if it brought it in. Okay, so you have a rotate for the yoke and then rotate for the pitch. So now it's in here. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and do my replace again. That's the command none. It should have two. It says 0 or replace. Hold on. Yeah, there it is. It's the one I want to replace. Edit, search, replace. There we go. 2. I'll save that. All right, looks good to you now. Let's see if that works, Joe. Let's go ahead and go back into VR. Okay. All right. Let's hope it works this time. That was really... I've never done that before. I've never seen that one before, so I'm glad we were able to quickly troubleshoot that. Okay. Reloading. Oh no! Don't tell me that. Now what's weird is that now I can't even control it with my yoke controller. Wow, that's weird. It's still working. Oh, you know what? I'm paused. I'm paused. Hold on. There we go. It's still doing it. Every time I grab it, it's locking it out. Let me make sure that I reload it again. Yeah, it's still doing it. Okay. One more time. Let's make. Maybe I didn't export it to the right folder. Let's make sure I didn't lock that again. It's unlocked. Looking at the properties here. Oh, hold on. That is really strange. Really strange. Because I'm pretty sure that this is correct now. It's not locked out. Yeah, the hardware's plugged in. I can see that the lights are on it. But I don't think that's it anyway. If the hardware wasn't plugged in... Yeah, I didn't give it a cursor again. You're right. Okay. Yep. So it's 4 arrows if I recall, right? So 4 arrows. And just to fix that in the future, I will also make sure I put it in here as well. So cursor, I don't have to have a cursor, I don't think, but I'm going to go ahead and put that in. Let's save it. And I don't think I have to export this again because let's just make sure we have this. I think we have this in here. So let me try one more time to put that in. Okay. Let's try one more time. That's odd. That's really odd. Oh, look at that. I think it's working. I think it's working. But it's not tuned. Yay, it's working. I guess you do need to put the cursor in. All right, so now I have a grabbable manipulator. Okay, so now I can go to the next step. Good, because what I didn't want was, you see, if I create an object the exact same size as the original object and I make it a manipulator, look at how it does this sort of overlay of green onto the object because it's a manipulated object now. Okay, and you can see it's using the what's called the ergonomic mode, not the realistic mode. We'll have to do that with the fine tuning at the end. But what I want to do is I want to create I want to resize this object so that I only have like an outline of the joystick. Now, usually for joysticks, I'll do a straight, like in the front, a straight down, and on yokes, I'll do on the side, where it just has a little green strip on the side, and we do that basically through a resize of the object. So I'm going to go back into the Cockpit OBJ now, or in the AC3D. And we're going to resize this object so that it stretches it outside of the of the exact borders of the original object. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Let me go ahead and get out. Okay, so let's go into sound. Let me put this back on. Okay, and let's repause that so we don't have the engine sound. Okay, now I'm going to reopen AC3D. That's a big, easy trip up. Yes, I agree. I agree. That, I mean, these things happen, you know, even, you know, this happens when I'm doing it also just normally, so I just have to figure it out. This is what makes it, you know, what live makes it sort of, you know, well, it is what it is, right? So I'm going to go ahead and open the second iteration, which I think I got right now. Select none. And I'm going to save it as object 3 or iteration 3 in the SR71 folder. So this is my third iteration now. And I'm going to focus on this object here. So I'm going to go into the hierarchy view. Okay, and make sure that I have that one selected. Okay, that's what I want. That's what I want to change. All right, so I have to decide, do I want the green to show on just the the front, or do I want it to show outlining on the sides? What do you guys think you would prefer? If you're listening in, if you have a vote, do you want me to create the green outline on the edges like this on the side, or do you want me to have a straight down the middle sort of thing? What do you guys think? Joe, do you have an opinion on that for joysticks? Usually on joysticks, I do in the center. I do the center line in the front, in the back. But on yokes, I usually do the edges. Okay. I guess let's do front and back. So let's see if I want to size. Let's see, select none, select this. And the way I do this, I do it through a resizing. So what I want to do is I want to have the outside to be just a little bit past the original model, but I want everything else to be scrunched inside, right? But I don't want to change the centering. So I need to use the right sizing utility, which is the scale here, to do that. And I have to be cognizant, do I want a thin line or do I want a broad line? What kind of line do I want? Okay. Let me see if anybody said anything. So green outline on the edges. You mean the left and right edges, Joe, that you would rather have? Because that would be basically stretching it in the X direction and then scrunching it in the Y direction and in the Z direction. If you don't okay, yes, you can do that, but I don't want to scrunch this down so far, because remember I have this object here that's following the contours of the original joystick. Right, so you want to size it to about 101% on either the X, Y, and Z, and then change the texture. So yeah, you can. I think you're talking about if you want a cylinder. Yeah, I don't really do that. I tend to want the contours of the original object in there, and I usually for joysticks I stretch it in the Z direction, which is this way, and then I scrunch it in the X direction, and then I shorten it in the Y direction. Is what I usually do for a joystick. For a yoke, I'll stretch it in the X direction and scrunch it in the Y direction and maybe the Z direction as well. So I don't think I had a preference here. So I think I'll go in. I will draw it or I'll resize it so that it's only in the front of the joystick. So it's like right down the center line in the middle. Okay. All right. So let's see. That's going to be a stretch in the Z direction. So in the X, Y, this is X, Y, and Z. On the Z direction, I'm going to make it 100 and, let's say, 1%. Or 2% or something like that. And then I don't want it to go above the top in the Y direction, so I'm going to shrink that a little bit. Let's say down to, I don't want maybe 98%. And I also want to scrunch it quite a bit in the X direction. So here I might go pretty drastic and go, I don't know, let's say even 25%. All right. And I'll press the scale and you'll see how that warps the joystick. So let's see what that does. Okay. So now I have a thin line down the middle. All right. So I'm going to save it and I'm going to re-export it. And you'll see what that does to the object. Okay, so let's save 3. Let's go ahead and re-export it into the laminar research. Okay, that's interesting. I need to update that. Okay, and then now I need to do the search and replace again. So once again, I'm gonna let's close that. Let's find the instruction. I want to place those command none nones right here. With 8. Okay, so I should have 2. Good. 2 were accepted. Save it. Let's go back into X-Plane, unpause it, and reload. Okay. Here we go again. Let's see if this works. Okay, I'm going to reload it. And let's see what it does to that green texture. Okay, look what I have now. I have a thin line where, right down the center, where that joystick used to be. Now, I don't know if I like that so much. But, you know, we can go back and resize it however we want in 2. Like if you want to, you know, if you have a straight joystick, that's a lot easier but you can see what I'm trying not to do is destroy the artwork on the joystick. And maybe in this case, since you have this little weird knob here, maybe it would have been better to go into the X direction rather than the Z direction. But that's basically how you do it. And I think I've successfully demonstrated it. So I don't want to take up too much time on resizing the object. Okay, so is that good with everybody, or do you want me to try again? So, you know, the idea there is I'm not destroying the artwork and covering it with green, and I'm not making it obnoxious. I'm just resizing it so that it's out of the way, but it's evident still when you click on it. It's highlighted enough. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? Good. All right, so let's go back now. Let's see, what do we have left to do? Let's see, I think I need to open up 3 again. And I think those were the 2 major things we wanted to do in the cockpit OBJ. And the remaining things, the drag axis rotates, I just want to get a reference on, which I think are these two right here. No, that can't be it because it's not a manipulator. So it's a manipulated area. Let me see. It's off to the right here. Is it this one? I'm gonna have to start hiding things to find it. Maybe top-down view. And I just wanted to get the reference on. I guess we don't. It's not absolutely necessary, but that one, it has a rotate on it. Is it being manipulated if it doesn't have a manipulator on it? Maybe I have the wrong object. Okay, it's those things I was thinking about doing a drag axis or drag rotate on. Sorry. Let's see where everybody is. Oh, is video blacked out? I'm sorry. Let me see if I... That's probably because I forgot to switch it. Hold on a second. Let me get back into the... Is that better? Okay. Sorry about that, guys. Sorry about that, guys. I have to switch between VR and inside VR and on the desktop, so I forgot to switch it over. Okay, but what I'm looking for right now is those two like switch protection guards that I want to see if we can switch those into the into drag rotates. So let me see. I think it's right here, but it's not showing up properly. I think I don't. Whoops. Undo. Select nothing. And let's see. I don't think I see it, but I thought it was, maybe it's over here on the top here. Is this it? No. You know what? I think I have to re-export that because I had these not hidden. I think that was my problem. So let's save this again under 3. And let's find out where those are. Should be off to the right here. I think it's these. Yeah, that's it. I think that's the right cutoff guard. That's it. And then the left cutoff guard. Okay, so these are the tool tips I'm going to be looking for in the cockpit OBJ, in the text. Is there a way to toggle off the yellow axis left? I think there is. I think it's up here in the tools. I don't usually mess with that, but I think it's up here in one of these things. So let's see, show axis or not. No. Anyway, I think it's in one of these where you can turn them on and off. Okay, so just to be sure, I'm gonna re-export this because I think I screwed up something in the save by not having that unselected. But now that I know what the guards are, I think we're pretty much done with the cockpit OBJ, because the two main things I wanted to do was put that joystick in there, which I may go back and resize this a little bit, maybe on the edges instead of on the in the front like that, because I'm not sure I liked how that turned out. And then the throttle, we have the center. Those were the two biggest things that we wanted to get done in the AC3D. Okay, but now you saw that when I was in there, it was in ergonomic mode, and don't necessarily want the joystick in ergonomic mode. So I'm going to go back in, export one more time, and then I'm going to go back and replace one more time those command nuns with a nun. Okay, save. Okay, now I'm going to go back into the VR config file, and this is where we can tune the joystick to our realistic mode, which is one of the last things you want to do. So here will be joystick tuning, I think. And I'm going to go back into the so, you know, in your subset you turn off VR. Okay, so in the VR file format down at the bottom, I think there is something called there's the yoke manips instructions, and there are three. One is a joystick manip, which is for smaller joysticks, and this basically does what the ergonomic mode does, so we don't want that one. We use this for small joysticks. Okay, and if you recall, when I was controlling the joystick, the way I was controlling it was by rotating my hand backwards and forwards, and it was all based on the angle of the controller. But in reality, when you control a joystick, you're holding your joystick with your hand, and you're moving your arm, and you're not rotating your wrist, right? So that's what we want. So there's two that we can use. There's the yoke manip translate. The yoke manip translate is for yokes, okay? This is because it has a rotational aspect, and it also has a transitional axis for the pitch, all right? That's not how a joystick works. A joystick basically rotates about a point in space, no matter which way you move it, front, back, left, and right. So for that, we use a yoke manip rotate. And this is where it gets pretty tricky, because we have to use the animation that we just put into the cockpit OBJ to get the proper references for the yoke manip rotate. And this is where this takes a little bit of trial and error and some patience, because it's not easy. So you have a centroid in there, which is the point, I think, where the joystick is manipulating from, and then you have your minimum and maximum pitches and your rolls. You have a roll centroid, and then you have the way we tune it is with the roll minimum degree and the roll maximum degree, and the pitch I think roll degree and the pitch max degree. So we have a very complicated manip, and this is probably one of the most complicated things to do in the VR config file. So I'm going to copy in the syntax here, so we have it here. And then another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to copy in from the cockpit OBJ all of our references for that pitch and roll. So you have the anim begin and the anim end. That's the end of the animations. Okay, we have our manipulator here. We have our data refs, and we have our transition rotates, and this is where whenever I do this, I never remember exactly how I should be doing it, but I end up working it out. And just to hashtag all of these out so I don't. Okay, and hashtag the syntax out. And that's basically the command I have to start. So I think I have to put in, if I recall, I think I don't have to put in the begin manip. I think. Let me open up another one that I've done before, or that we have one for. Let's open up the let's say the Yak 55 and the vrconfig file, just as a reference. So yeah, we have to put the begin manip, and then we have to put the data ref, yes. So and then we have to put the rotate instructions in. Okay, so let's go to the vrconfig. We have the begin manip. It's going to be the drag XY, then it's going to be the two data refs and the tooltip. That's the roll and the pitch and the joystick. Okay. Let's go ahead and put the end manip in. Tab it out, and here's our yoke manip rotate instruction. Okay, so this is where, yeah, you do begin manip. I got it, Joe. This is why you're here. Okay, so we have this here. I think we're following the appropriate syntax, and I think yeah, in my example here, I'm doing the same thing. Okay. So now we need to have the pitch sent, the pitch, the centroid X, centroid Y, and centroid Z for the pitch. And if I go back to the instructions here, yeah, I believe you take that directly from the translation. You could take them from the static translation that precedes the animation. So that's the pitch centroid and roll centroid. So in the pitch, which is the first, I have the static. That's, I believe it's this one for the pitch, and I think the first one I need is the pitch. So it's these three. I believe it's these 3 points here. Right. I'm gonna make sure that Joe's not screaming at me, no, that's not right. Okay, and then I think the pitch axis XY are taken from the rotational axis. They should be in unit vectors taken directly from your pitch roll animations. Typically the pitch will be the X and the roll will be in the Z. Okay, so I think what that means is let's see, take it from, I think it's here. So this is the pitch, right? And I think the next one I need is the pitch axis. Right? I think that's right. Pitch, XYZ. And then it needs the pitch, minimum and maximum degree. So I'm going to just guess at that. I think it is, that's the maximum degree of the animation, I believe, if I recall. So I think that is going to be about, I want to say 30 degrees maybe. Let's see. Yeah, 0 to 20 on the pitch. Isn't it negative 20 to 20 on the pitch, Joe? Let's see if you. The rotate key is a giveaway here. At the 0 on the data ref, it's 0. At the 1, it's 20. I think that's here, right? So I'm sorry, there's a little bit of a delay when I'm talking, so apologize for that. Just follow the numbers. You know the numbers better than I do, Joe. So I think we got this right. It's 0 to 20 because it's 0 to 20 here. Or 1 to 20 here. Is that correct? Okay. Let me go back in, and now we've done the pitch. Now we got to do the roll. So for the roll, it's right here, I believe. These three numbers. Okay, and then you have the rotate 0, 0, 1, I believe. Okay, and let's see, I don't have a key here. So let's see, I think it's, let's see, we need the roll X, roll Y, roll Z. And then we need the Z. Do we need the Z? I thought the Z is all 0. Okay, so X, Y, Z. Sorry, I gotta see what Joe's saying to me. This is very confusing I'm sorry about that, but yeah, I know it's confusing for me too until you realize, you know, it's just about copying the numbers correctly from the animations, really. And then I think, let's see, this is let's see, so I have these three, I have these three, I have the pitch. See, the pitch centroid, the pitch axis, pitch minimum and max. And I'm starting on the roll, 1, 2, 3, which I copied in. The roll axis, X, Y, Z, which is these three numbers, and then the roll minimum and roll maximum, which I think is going to be also about 45 to 45, right? Or negative 45 to 45, or 30 maybe. I think. So let's follow the numbers, because I think these are this is the stuff that is going to tune. These numbers here are going to tune the joystick to follow your controller, if I recall. The min and max roll degree. And so when we adjust it, we're going to adjust these here and these here to what we're doing. Okay? Let me see if... Yeah, that's right. You can tweak it until it feels right. So why don't we try that? Why don't we try saving it and reloading it and see what it does? Okay. I think I've got this right. Now, every time I do this, it takes me a little bit of thought because, and especially doing it live is a bit hard. But let's see what happens when I do this. Let's see how it changes the, let's see how it changes things. The negative 17.49 is going to be the roll ratio. I thought I saw that. That's, let's see, where was that? This one right here. That's the one. So you think it should be 17.5 to 17.5 in here? Let's see if I did that right. Let's see if he gives me the approval. So you think that's where it should be to match the animation? Oh, you think it should be positive and negative. I do sometimes mess that up too. Okay. So what do you say? What do you say we take a gamble and see if this is the right one? What do you say? It should change something. So if not, we'll go back and see if it's totally wonked or not. Okay, so let's go back into X-plane. And let's see. Put my gear on. Oh, underscore on the M and nip. Oh, you're right. Thank you. I think you just saved me there. Okay. Let's save this. And boy, you're quick, Joe. I'm glad you saw that. All right, let's see if this works. Okay. So all right, back in. And just to recap, remember this thing can only move if I rotate right now and back and forth like this. Let's see how it changes. Developer reload aircraft. Let's see what it does. Okay, now you see what it's doing, and it's following pretty darn good, isn't it? This one's not following quite as well, but the roll is following almost exactly right. See that? That's what you want. You want the animation to follow exactly with the controller. Now I can see that what's going on here in the pitch direction, it's traveling faster than my controller. So I need to adjust that a little bit. So maybe I did put a little bit too much there. Okay? So I need to adjust that. But as far as the roll direction, Joe, you had the numbers exactly right. What can I tell? What can I say? You're the master. I call you sensei for a reason. Right? So there you go. There you go. All right, let's and Joe screaming me with his text with the yeah, let's go pause this. Okay. So I think the two that I have to change. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, Joe. Maybe it should. You said this is where I'm going to have to. You said 20 here in the key as a starting point, but we can slow it down and raise it to 30. So let's try that. And again, what am I changing? I'm changing the pitch degrees, right? And I'm doing that to match the movement of my controller. So let's go ahead and go back in We can reload it. Okay, let's see if that helps. And we just keep doing this until we get it right. And we can change those numbers until it falls. Let's see. Yeah, it's a lot better. And I'm sitting a little too close to my desk here. Let me go back here. Let's see if I can grab it closer. Yeah, it's a little bit, still a little bit too fast, but it's a lot better. So maybe we got to go up, bump that number up even a little bit more, maybe to 40. Okay, let's bump it up to 40. Let's see. Save it. Let's go back in. Reload it one more time. Okay. Let's see how it does now. Look at that. It's tuned just right at 40. Look at that. Do you guys see all that? I think it's sticking because of the way I'm positioned in the chair versus the cameras. So let me see if I can straighten out here a little bit. Okay, so look at that. Perfect. Perfect. That's nailed down, guys. Exactly where we want it. So eventually I get there, right? And the good news is, even if I resize this, if I go back into the AC3D file, I resize this again, I don't have to redo the VR config animation really, because that comes directly from the way this object is manipulating around that bottom centroid down there, and it's not going to change no matter how I resize it. So there you go. Works great. So now we have our throttles working in VR. We have our joystick tuned in VR. And the last thing is, what are we going to do about these? Now, I don't know about you, but maybe, let's see, we're already an hour and a half into this. So maybe we could do one more to talk about the axis rotates. I don't know. What do you guys think? We're already an hour and a half into this. Maybe it's a good stopping point. Okay. So does anybody have any questions on what we've covered? I know that we covered a lot, but what do you guys think? Good, bad, ugly? You know, I can't hear you guys in the voice channel if you're talking there. Yeah, let's do a final one another time, Joe says. Okay, so we'll do one more, and I guess the focus of that one will be the final. Let me see if I'm going to get out of. Yeah, let me get out of. Okay, so the final one will be the drag axis rotate, which is very similar to what we just did in the joystick. But I would say at this point, we're probably about 90% done with this thing, or 95% done with this thing. We are pretty close to having this completely done and ready to release. At least I think we are. So let me turn that off. Okay, so that's okay with everybody. We will do one more workshop, and that won't be as long as this one. I know we went pretty far in with this one, But we got what I wanted to get done, which was we got the joystick moved in, we got the throttle fixed, and we got the joystick tuned to our VR controller. And that's about all we have time for right now. So, okay, so let's do a final one. I guess we'll try to do one next week. And Joe already has a tutorial, a similar tutorial on this. And if you want to go to SimVRlabs, but we just did this live, and you know we got through it, and we figured it out. Okay, so I guess that will wrap it up. Let's put on some party music, and we'll see you on the next stream. Thanks, everyone. I hope that wasn't too confusing, but you can go and review it. Thanks, Joe. Thanks for your help, Joe.